Was it worth it? Jack Harlow stared at the screen as the final transmission from Europa cut to static. The mining outpost's last moments showed crystalline ships tearing through the station's outer hull. Screams filled the command center before silence took over. "Replay it," Jack ordered, his voice tight. The technician beside him looked up with concern. "Sir, we've watched it 7 times. I said replay it." The footage began again. Normal operations, then alarms, then panic as strange ships appeared from nowhere. The station manager's face filled the screen, blood running down his forehead. They came without warning. Not like anything we've seen before. If anyone gets this... The transmission ended with the sound of tearing metal. Jack's fists clenched. 4,000 people. Gone. Just like that. The memory of his brother's final message from Mars Colony 3 years ago flashed through his mind. Different attack. Same result. "Sir, General Winters is calling an emergency meeting." Jack nodded and left the communications room. The corridors of Earth Military Command buzzed with urgent activity. 3 outposts had gone dark in the past 12 hours. Europa was just the first to send visual confirmation of attack. The war room fell silent as Jack entered. General Winters stood at the head of the table, her face grim. "Commander Harlow, you've seen the transmission?" "Yes, ma'am." "We need eyes on the ground. Assessment of what we're dealing with." Jack stepped forward. "I volunteered to lead the reconnaissance mission." A murmur went through the room. Colonel Reeves shook his head. "Harlow, you just got back from the Titan deployment. You're due for leave." "With respect, sir, I know Europa's layout better than anyone, and I have personal reasons to go." The general studied him. She knew about his brother. Everyone did. "Very well. You leave in 3 hours. Observation only, Commander. No engagement." The journey to Jupiter's moon took 4 days. 4 days of Jack staring at the stars, wondering what waited for them. His team prepared in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Europa's surface came into view, its icy shell reflecting the distant sun. The outpost should have been visible from orbit, lights marking human presence on the alien moon. Instead, there was only darkness. "No heat signatures," reported Lieutenant Diaz. "No radio signals." "Take us down," Jack ordered. The landing was smooth, too smooth. No defense systems activated, no warning shots. Just silence. Inside the facility, the horror became real. Bodies lay everywhere, frozen in their final moments. Some showed signs of weapons fire, others looked like they'd been torn apart. "What could do this?" whispered Sergeant Miller. Jack didn't answer. He moved through the command center, stepping over bodies to reach the main computer. If they could recover any data... "Sir, I found something," called Diaz from a side room. A strange device sat embedded in the wall, pulsing with faint blue light. Not human technology. "Don't touch it," Jack warned, but he moved closer. Symbols scrolled across its surface, changing patterns. "It's some kind of data core," said Miller. "Maybe navigation?" Jack carefully disconnected it from the wall. The symbols stabilized, showing what looked like a star map. "Their home world," Jack whispered. "This shows where they came from." A sudden alarm blared from their ship outside. Diaz checked his tablet and went pale. Multiple contacts emerging from Jupiter's shadow. "Massive ships, sir, hundreds of them." Jack clutched the alien device. "Everyone back to the ship, now." They ran through the frozen corridors, the dead watching their retreat with empty eyes. As they reached the airlock, the first explosions rocked the facility. The rescue fleet in orbit was already engaged, outgunned and dying. Jack's ship barely cleared Europa's atmosphere as massive crystalline vessels tore Earth's ships apart. 3 weeks later, Jack stood before Earth's United Defense Council, the alien data core on the table before him. "They don't know what they've started," he said, his voice hard with resolve. "Humans don't just fight wars, we end them." The factory floor that once made farm equipment now built weapons. Jack watched workers assemble missile casings where tractors used to roll off the line. All across Earth, the same change happened. Humanity prepared for war. "Captain Harlow, they're ready for you," said a young officer. "Captain now, not commander. The promotion came with his new assignment. Jack followed the officer through the massive shipyard where Earth's newest weapon waited. The Vengeance stood taller than any ship Jack had ever seen. Black metal skin absorbed light rather than reflected it. Weapon ports lined its hull like angry eyes. "She's the first of her kind," said Admiral Chen as Jack approached. "Powered by the tech you brought back from Europa. The aliens will regret the day they showed us their technology." Jack nodded. "When do we launch?" "Tomorrow. Your crew is already aboard, including our best weapons engineer." Alan Reeves stood at the bottom of the boarding ramp. His eyes were hollow, his face thin. Jack remembered that Reeves had lost his wife and daughters on Europa. "Captain," Reeves said, extending his hand. "I've made some improvements to the weapon systems. The Vex won't know what hit them." "Vex?" "That's what we're calling them now, from the symbols in their language." Jack boarded his new ship with Reeves beside him. The corridors hummed with energy. Crew members snapped to attention as he passed. These people believed in him, believed he would lead them to victory. "The bridge is this way, sir," said Reeves. Jack took his captain's chair and looked at the faces around him. Some excited, some scared, all determined. "Let's go hunting," he said. The Vengeance led a fleet of 30 ships to the edge of the solar system where the alien forces gathered. Intelligence said it was a small group, perfect for testing Earth's new weapons. They were wrong. 50 Vex ships detected, called the sensor officer. "No, wait, 70, 100, they're still coming." Jack gripped his chair. "Launch all fighters. Prepare main weapons." The battle began with bright flashes as Earth ships fired first. Their new weapons designed from the alien tech should have torn through the Vex ships. Nothing happened. "They've adapted," Reeves shouted from the weapons station. "They've neutralized the energy signatures." Jack watched in horror as Vex ships tore through the human fleet. 15 ships gone in minutes. The Vengeance rocked with impacts. "Engines at 40%, reported the helmsman. "We can't outrun them." Jack stood up. A crazy idea formed in his mind. "Divert all power to engines and forward shields. Set course for the lead Vex ship." "Sir?" The helmsman looked back in shock. "You heard me. If our weapons don't work, we'll use the ship itself." The Vengeance surged forward, straight toward the largest Vex vessel. Alarms blared. Crew members braced for impact. 3 seconds to contact, called the helmsman. The ships collided with a sound like the end of the world. Jack was thrown from his chair. Lights failed. Emergency systems kicked in, but they were alive. And through the view screen, Jack saw the Vex ship breaking apart. "They're vulnerable to physical impact," he said, pulling himself up. "Send the order to all ships. Use kinetic weapons only. Bullets, missiles, ramming if necessary." The tide of battle turned. Earth ships switched to primitive weapons, firing solid metal rounds that tore through Vex hulls. The aliens hadn't prepared for such basic attacks. Hours later, the surviving Earth ships gathered around the Vengeance. They had captured a Vex command vessel with its alien leader inside. Jack stood before the prisoner, a crystalline being that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "Why attack us?" Jack demanded. The alien's voice came through the translator, cold and mechanical. "You harbor the enemy, the ancient ones who made us, then tried to unmake us. We will not be unmade." Reeves stepped forward, his face twisted with hate. "They killed my family for that, for some ancient grudge?" The alien revealed more. The Vex forward base. Their plans for humanity. Jack ordered the information sent to Earth immediately. Later that night, Jack couldn't sleep. He walked the ship's corridors thinking about their next move. A strange sound drew him to the brig. Inside, he found Reeves standing over the alien prisoner. Blood dripped from crystal shards on the floor. The alien made sounds of pain as Reeves cut into it with a knife. "What are you doing?" Jack demanded. Reeves turned, his eyes wild. "Learning how to hurt them, Captain, the way they hurt us." Jack stared at his weapons officer and saw something that frightened him more than any alien. The face of a man who had lost his humanity. The Vex forward base hung in space like a twisted metal spider. Jack watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as his strike team prepared to board. He had removed Reeves from the mission after the incident with the prisoner. The man was brilliant, but dangerous. "Strike team ready, Captain," said Steve Donovan, Jack's second-in-command and childhood friend. "Remember, we need intel more than kills," Jack said over the comm. "Find out what they're planning." The strike team launched in 3 small craft, barely visible against the darkness of space. Jack held his breath as they approached the Vex base undetected. "We're in," Steve reported. "No resistance yet, this place is huge." Jack listened to the team's communications as they moved deeper into the base. Their helmet cameras showed strange corridors that seemed to grow from the walls. "Captain, you need to see this." Steve's voice had changed, tight with horror. The video feed showed a massive chamber filled with tanks. Inside each tank floated a human body, connected to machines by tubes and wires. "They're harvesting us," Steve whispered, "taking something from our brains." Jack felt sick. "Get samples, document everything, then plant the charges and get out." "Sir, some of these people might still be alive." "We can't save them, Steve, not now. But we can make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." The team moved through the facility, planting explosives. Everything went smoothly until the alarm started. "We've been spotted," Steve shouted. Gunfire echoed through the comm. Jack watched helplessly as the helmet cameras showed Vex soldiers surrounding the team. Strange weapons fired crystalline shards that tore through armor. "Fall back to the ships," Jack ordered. The team retreated, fighting their way back. One by one, soldiers fell. Jack counted the survivors as they reached their craft. Steve wasn't among them. "Where's Commander Donovan?" Jack demanded. "They took him, sir," replied a wounded soldier. "Dragged him away. We couldn't reach him." Jack slammed his fist against the console. "Launch the remaining ships. Detonate the charges." The Vex base erupted in silent explosions, sections breaking apart in the vacuum of space. But a large portion remained intact, the section where Steve had been taken. Back on Earth, the United Defense Council debated their next move. "The Vex are harvesting human neural tissue," said General Winters. "This changes everything." "We should negotiate," argued Councillor Patel. "Find out what they want." "What they want is our extinction," Jack said. "You saw the evidence. They're turning humans into weapons." The debate lasted hours. In the end, the council voted to continue the war but forbade any rescue mission for Steve. The risk was too great. Jack left the chamber, his mind already made up. That night he gathered a small crew of volunteers, Lieutenant Diaz, who had been with him since Europa, Sergeant Miller, who had lost a brother in the first attack, and 5 others who believed in him. "This is against orders," Jack told them. "Anyone who comes with me will face court-martial if we survive." "Steve would do the same for any of us," said Diaz. They took a small stealth ship designed for reconnaissance. The journey to the Vex base took 3 days. 3 days of Jack wondering if his friend was still alive. The base had been repaired, but security was lighter than expected. They docked at a maintenance port and entered undetected. "Life signs this way," whispered Miller, checking his scanner. They found the processing center where humans were kept. Most tanks were empty now, the facility still recovering from their attack. But one tank held a familiar figure. "Steve," Jack breathed, rushing to the tank. Steve's eyes opened, but they weren't his eyes anymore. One was human, the other a crystalline orb that glowed blue. Metal and crystal had been grafted to half his face and body. "Jack." Steve's voice was partly his own, partly mechanical. "You shouldn't have come." "We're getting you out of here," Jack said, working to open the tank. Steve grabbed his arm with a hand that was now crystal and metal. "No. Kill me." "What?" "They're in my head, Jack. I can hear them, see their plans." Steve's human eye filled with tears. "They're turning us into them, making hybrids to infiltrate Earth. I'm already changing." Jack stared at his oldest friend, now part human, part alien. "Please," Steve begged. "Don't let me become one of them." Jack raised his gun, his hand shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and pulled the trigger. The team escaped with Steve's body and the data he had gathered while connected to the Vex network. Information about the Vex homeworld, their defenses, and their ultimate plans for humanity. 3 days later, Jack stood in handcuffs before the United Defense Council, charged with disobeying direct orders. "You left Earth defenseless by taking that ship," said General Winters. "I brought back this," Jack replied as soldiers carried in a secure container. "Everything we need to end this war, the location of the Vex homeworld and how to destroy it." The council members looked at each other. "And what would you have us do with this information, Captain Harlow?" asked Councillor Patel. Jack's face hardened as he remembered Steve's pleading eyes. "Build the biggest fleet in human history and burn their world to ash." The prison walls shook as explosions hit the city. Jack looked up from his small cell as alarms blared through the building. 3 months had passed since his court-martial. 3 months of waiting while Earth built its armada. The door slid open. General Winters stood there, her uniform torn and dirty. "They hit us, Harlow. The Vex launched a surprise attack. Half the Defense Council is dead." Jack stood up. "The fleet?" "Mostly intact. We kept the ship scattered after your warning." She tossed him a uniform. "Put this on. You're back in command." "I thought I was a traitor." "You're the only one who's beaten them. And now you're an admiral." The prison fell behind them as they raced to the emergency command center. Screens showed battles raging across Earth's orbit. Vex ships punched through defense lines, heading for major cities. "They know we were planning something big," said Winters. "This is a preemptive strike." Jack studied the tactical displays. "We need to launch now, take the fight to their homeworld while they're committed here. Half our fleet is engaged in Earth's defense. Then we go with what we have." "The Vengeance is ready?" Winters nodded. "With the weapon you specified. But Harlow, it was meant to be a last resort." "This is the last resort." 12 hours later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Vengeance. The ship had been rebuilt, stronger than before. Behind it, 200 warships formed up, ready to jump to the Vex homeworld. Alan Reeves entered the bridge, now wearing a lieutenant's uniform. Jack had requested him specifically for this mission. "The weapon is armed, Admiral," Reeves said. His eyes burned with the same intensity Jack had seen in the brig months ago. "Good. Let's make them pay." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving Earth's battles behind. Jack knew they might return to find their world in ruins. But if they succeeded, the Vex would never threaten humanity again. The jump took 5 days. 5 days of Jack studying the Vex homeworld defenses, planning their approach. The data Steve had died for showed a weakness in the planet's orbital grid. "We'll lose ships," Jack told his officers. "Maybe most of them, but we only need one to get through." Diane Chen, his communications specialist, looked troubled. "Sir, the weapon will destroy the entire planet. Are we sure there are no civilians? No innocents?" "The Vex are a weapon," Jack said firmly. "Created by some ancient race to wipe out their enemies. There are no innocents." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vex system. Immediately, enemy ships moved to intercept. "All ships engage at will," Jack ordered. "Vengeance, set course for the primary target." The battle erupted around them. Earth ships fired everything they had, using the kinetic weapons that had proven effective. Vex ships shattered under the assault, but there were so many of them. Jack watched as his fleet was cut to pieces. Ship after ship vanished from tactical displays. But they were doing their job, clearing a path for the Vengeance. "Shields at 30%, reported the tactical officer. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. "Stay on course," Jack ordered. A massive hit rocked the ship. Consoles exploded. Crew members were thrown from their stations. "Engine room hit," shouted the engineer. "We're losing power." The Vengeance limped toward the Vex homeworld, now visible through the view screen, a blue-green planet with crystalline cities visible from orbit. "We won't make it to deployment range," said Reeves. "We need to land." Jack made the hardest decision of his life. Abandon ship protocols. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Skeleton crew remains to land this ship. As the crew evacuated, Jack studied the planet below. Something wasn't right. The cities didn't look like military bases. They looked like places where people lived. "Sir, I'm picking up strange readings," said Diane, who had refused to leave. "These look like civilian communications, families, children." Jack froze. That's impossible. The Vex are weapons. Weapons that evolved, she said quietly. The data shows they were created millions of years ago. Maybe they became more than their programming. The vengeance entered the atmosphere, burning as it fell. Jack made his decision. Abort the weapon deployment. We'll land and assess. Reeves looked up from his console, face twisted with rage. No, they killed everyone I loved. Before Jack could stop him, Reeves slammed his hand down on the weapon controls. Lights flashed as the doomsday device activated. What have you done? Jack whispered as the countdown began. Reeves smiled, a terrible, empty smile. What we came to do. End them. Outside the view screen, Vex ships approached not to attack, but to defend their world, their home. The ship shook as the weapon burrowed into the planet's crust. Jack grabbed Reeves by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Override it, Jack shouted. Now. No override, Reeves said, smiling through bloody teeth. Once started, it can't be stopped. The core will crack in 30 minutes. Jack released him and turned to what remained of his bridge crew. Get to the escape pods. Save who you can. Sir? Diane looked confused. The weapon targets the planet's core. When it blows, nothing on this world survives. Jack moved to the weapons locker and grabbed emergency gear. I saw children in those cities. We're taking as many as we can. The Vengeance had crashed near a Vex settlement. As Jack and his crew emerged from the wreckage, they saw crystalline buildings shimmering in the alien sunlight. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The weapon is working, Reeves said, following them out. Soon there will be justice for Earth. This isn't justice, Jack said. It's genocide. Vex soldiers approached, weapons ready. Jack raised his hands. We need to evacuate, he shouted, hoping their translators worked. Your planet is dying. The Vex hesitated, their crystalline bodies reflecting the red emergency lights that now filled the sky. One stepped forward. Why should we trust the destroyers? Its mechanical voice asked. Because I'm trying to save your children, Jack replied. The ground shook harder. In the distance, a massive crack opened in the planet's surface, spewing molten rock into the air. The Vex leader made a decision. It gestured toward a large building where smaller crystal figures huddled. Our young ones. Save them if you can. Jack's team raced toward the building while Diane coordinated with the remaining human ships in orbit. Some Vex helped, leading children toward the landing zones where escape pods and shuttles waited. We can't save them all, Diane said, her voice breaking as she watched thousands of Vex families trying to reach safety. We save who we can, Jack replied. Reeves watched from the sidelines, his face twisted with conflict. They deserve to die. All of them. Look at them, Alan, Jack said, pointing to a Vex child clinging to its parent. Look at what we're destroying. A massive quake knocked them to the ground. Buildings collapsed around them. The Vex leader approached Jack. Time grows short. Our ships are launching, but many will not escape. Jack nodded grimly. We'll take as many children as we can fit. They worked frantically, loading Vex children into every available craft. Diane organized the evacuation, her hands flying over her portable comm unit. Admiral! She shouted suddenly. The building! Jack turned to see the structure housing the remaining children starting to collapse. Diane ran toward it without hesitation. Diane, no, Jack called, but she was already inside. Moments later, she emerged with 3 Vex children, pushing them toward safety as the building came down on top of her. No. Jack ran forward, but Reeves held him back. She's gone, Reeves said, his voice different now, broken. She died saving them. The final shuttles prepared to launch. The planet was coming apart, massive fissures opening everywhere. Jack and Reeves boarded the last ship, along with 20 Vex children. As they lifted off, Jack watched the world below tear itself apart. The chain reaction spread across the planet's surface, crystal cities shattering and falling into the growing abyss. In orbit, the shockwave from the planet's destruction rippled outward, disabling Vex ships throughout the system. The signal spread faster than light, reaching across the galaxy to every Vex vessel and base. It's over. Reeves whispered, watching the destruction. We won. Jack looked at the frightened Vex children huddled in the shuttle bay. Did we? 3 months later, Jack stood before the New Earth Council. The war was over. The Vex forces had collapsed when their homeworld died, their shared consciousness shattered. What do we do with the survivors? Asked Councillor Patel. There are 10,000 Vex refugees in our custody. Many want them executed, another councillor added, after what they did to our colonies. Jack looked out at the chamber filled with Earth's leaders. So many had died in the war. So many on both sides. We have a choice, Jack said. We can finish what we started and kill them all. Or we can be better than our enemies. Better than what we became during this war. He thought of Diane, who gave her life for alien children. Of Steve, who died rather than become a weapon. Of Reeves, who had finally seen the cost of his revenge. I've adopted one of the Vex children, Jack told the silent chamber. His name is Eli now. He asks about his homeworld. What should I tell him? That humans are the monsters who destroyed his people? Or that we're the ones who will help build something new from the ashes? The council chambers remained quiet as Jack's words hung in the air. Later that evening, Jack returned to his small apartment where Reeves waited with Eli. The boy's crystalline form caught the sunset light, sending rainbows across the walls. The council will vote tomorrow, Jack said. I think they'll choose integration. Reeves nodded, watching Eli draw pictures of his lost world. I hated them so much. I never thought I could feel anything else. Hate is easy, Jack said. What comes next is harder. Eli looked up at them, his crystal eyes shimmering. Will you tell me about Earth again? Jack sat beside the boy who should have been his enemy. Earth is where we learn from our mistakes, where we build something better from the ruins of what came before. He put his hand on Eli's shoulder. That's what humans do best.